Everyone, it's Jennifer with Puzzle Tumblers Presents. In today's edition of What Does This Button Do?, I'm going to be teaching you how to use the Rhinestone panel in your Silhouette Studio. After this tutorial, I'm really hoping that you'll be able to not only use the Rhinestone panel to make amazing faux rhinestone patterns out of the HTV that you can iron onto t-shirts or just about anything, but to use the same panel to make amazing designs that you can use for your heat press and iron on rhinestones. So let's go and let me teach you a few things.
Okay, I want to show you this really quickly before it gets to the point where I cannot. I'm going to show you 3 different things that you can do with this, and then I am going to show you how to fix some issues, and then we're going to get going. At the end of this video, I will have a shirt to show you so that you can see exactly how this looks. Now, we're doing what's known as a faux rhinestone. That means we're not using rhinestones. We are using holographic HTV or glittered HTV or whatever it is you decide you want to use to make the dots and make it look like it has rhinestones on it, but it's not going to. Now, I personally use my heat press at 305 and I press it for anywhere between 10 and 15 seconds. I suggest that you read the back of your HTV. Usually it'll come with instructions. If you don't get instructions, this is a good place to start. It can be anywhere between 295 and 305. And a lot of times your HTV for foiled or holographic or glittered HTV is going to be what's known as cool press. That means, or cool pull. That means you have to wait for it to completely cool down before you pull off the backing. And again, I also suggest that you preheat all of your fabric, press it for just 2 or 3 seconds to get all of that moisture out so that when you do press your HTV down, it's going to stay. I'm going to go ahead and use the word heart because I've already used it once, and I've got it printed twice because I want to show you how it looks in 2 different ways. The first way, we're going to use a thin curvy. It's fun. Add a line. I think I got that one on Creative Fabrica. And the reason I want to show this to you is because I want to show you why it's best for you to use a thicker font. Even if it's a thicker font with curvy lines or whatever, you really need to have thicker font. Because if you don't, it's really hard to read and it's just better for you to use the thicker font. All right, let's go ahead and use the same font that I used over here. This is called Baby Angelo, and I did get this one on Creative Fabrica. It's one of my favorites because it's kind of a cross between a print and a curvy. The first thing I want to point out is that you'll notice here, and this is something you really need to do when you do any type of vinyl cut, where your letters touch, if there's a line, your cutter is going to cut exactly like this. You want to make sure that you weld it all together so that you make it one cohesive letter or word. And then you need to make sure that you group these together. If you don't group them together and you decide to move them, they're just going to come apart. Same thing up here. You need to make sure that you weld your letters together and then group them. Trust me on this. If you don't do this, when it comes time for you to do your first print, where these lines meet, you're going to have overlapping dots, and you don't want that. That's like right here. The dots will overlap, and that's exactly how they're going to cut. Overlapped. So first things first, as soon as you do it, weld your stuff. Okay, so now let's go over here, and we're going to click that amazing button. I am so sorry, guys. I don't know when this just kicked in. This is the button that I use to show you how to do your warping and also how to do your nesting. So now we're moving over into our Rhinestone panel. Now, if you go into your program and you don't have this, it may very well be because you don't have the Designer Plus or the Business Edition, or you upgraded and you haven't upgraded the program. You have to remove one and you have to pull in another, and just make sure that you have the more up-to-date programs. The free edition is not going to allow you to do this, which is why I'll continue to say, if you can, upgrade. There are coupons that you can find all over the internet. Silhouette really wants you to have the better edition so that you can do more of what they are here to do. I personally never thought that I could do something like this. I went and bought this edition, the business edition, because it has everything. Because I wanted to cut vinyl and I wanted to be able to do it without having to wonder why won't can it do this and why won't it do that. This program does it all. So now I'm going to show you how to do the rhinestone. And it looks like a little diamond or a rhinestone. So we're going to click that, and this is the panel that's going to come up. So now you know what happens when you click on that button. Now we're going to highlight this one, and this right here is the edge. And see, you really can't read that it says heart unless you really want to take the time to move everything around. Edging on the outside of a very thin font is just, to me, not pretty. So if you have the time and this is what they want to have on their shirt, you're going to move everything around. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. Then, hey, that's great. But I'm going to suggest that anytime you do use the rhinestone button, whether it's to do rhinestones or whether to do the faux rhinestone, try to convince whoever it is that is wanting you to do this for them that the thicker fonts are better. And here's why. If I go into this font and I do the edge, you're able to read it better. So that's what I wanted to show you here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this one because really you can't see what it says. And now we're going to play around with this one. And I'm going to tell you and show you everything that everything does. In the process, I'm going to put on our page a heart, because everything I do can also be done to shapes. Click on the heart and do our edge. I think I'm going too fast for my computer. And that is basically what that button does. If I don't want it to do anything, I can come in here and say none, and there won't be any dots on there. I'll go back to the very beginning. But now let's talk about what each of the effects do. And we're going to use the heart and the word heart so that you can see what I'm talking about. The reason I am showing you with a shape as well, because some of these buttons work better on words and some of them work better on shapes. This is my opinion. You may decide you like it differently, and then that's completely up to you. All right, so you have 4 different buttons to choose from. Again, I've already shown you the none button, which means it's going to bring it back to the beginning, no dots. Then you have your edge button, which is only going to give you your rhinestone dots around the edge. This right here is the linear fill. This is for people who really like everything to be straight lined, for everything to be in its little box. That's okay, completely up to you. But that's what that looks like. You are probably going to have to go in and play with it just a little bit. We'll do that with this one as well so that you can see that you can do words. Every little itty bitty dot that you see here is going to be cut out individually. And depending on what type of heat transfer vinyl you use, it should look like its own individual fake rhinestone. Now, I'm going to show you the one that I use. I either use the edge or I use this button right here, which is the Radial Fill. I like it better. I'm not really much into making sure that all my lines are straight. And I would go in and fix this, which I'll show you how to do in a second. Again, with our word, go in here to our radial. It's not going to be quite as full, and you can add more to it if you want. You can make this bigger, you can make this smaller. The bigger you make it, the more rhinestones it's going to add to it. As you can see right there, the smaller you make it, it will take rhinestones away so that it will fit. as you notice right there. Okay, so I'll make it a little bigger again, and then I'm going to talk to you about rhinestone sizes. These are the sizes that you can get, or you can customize your own size. When you do this, I'm going to suggest before you cut anything, you print it on a piece of paper. If you have to, just do grayscale, fast print, but you want to see what size your heat transfer is going to be cut. That's the best way to do it before you go about cutting anything. So if you're going to have an 8.5 by 11 sheet, print it on your 8.5 by 11 sheet and see what they're going to look like so that you're not surprised later when it cuts everything. Save yourself the headache for later. This 10SS and 16SS, these are the sizes that most people use. If you really want to have big dots, then you can go with the 20SS. This 10SS is the size of the actual rhinestone, and I'm going to show you using the heart, the 10SS. It's going to need, down here at the bottom, total dots in here, right here, are 738. If you decided to fill that entire heart with the 10SS rhinestones, you would need 738 of those. How awesome is that? You don't have to do any more guessing. Do I have enough? Do I have too much? Usually you can buy it in whatever lot it is that you want, and you can know how many that you need. This is also how many dots that your cutter is going to cut and why it's going to take forever, but in the end it's going to be great. If we go to the 16SS, it's going to change down here and tell you that inside of this heart, notice that the dots got a little bigger, are 538 little dots, or 538 rhinestones. If I do the 20SS, it will make the rhinestones or the dots bigger, and there are 351 of them. No more guessing. I personally like the bigger dots. It's really up to whatever you decide you want to have. Same thing with our heart up here. It's going to have 847 with this font, with this size of the 10SS. If we change it to the 20SS, you'll see the dots on the inside of the heart word change, and it will tell you that you're going to need, it's going to take a bit because I'm having to change every single one of those little dots. There we go. And it's going to need 400, there's 422 little dots in here, and that's how many rhinestones you're going to need. And you're going to need to do what I tell you to do next. This freehand here is really kind of fun if you can draw. Now, I can't draw a stick figure. Honestly, I really have never been able to draw much, but if you can freehand and you have some type of tablet with the pencil, you can freehand and dot whatever it is that you want. This is what you would do. All right, so now I'm going to show you, move this out of the way. I'm going to move this back over, and I'm going to show you using both of these how releasing the rhinestones and fixing what it thinks you're supposed to have. So I'm going to highlight this because there are a few areas I don't like. I don't like that dot there. I don't like that dot way up here. I don't like this dot way over here, or this one way over here. And you look at it and you think, why would it put it there? Well, that's just what it sees. It's just a computer, but you see that it needs to be fixed. So you're going to click on this release rhinestone. I'm going to repeat. It has to release every itty bitty rhinestone or every little dot. So it's going to take a little while. This is what happens. You're going to have all of the individual dots are going to be released. Now you can take the rhinestones, click on it, and move it. All right, that can be moved. Let's see, this one over here can be moved to make it look a little better here. This one can be moved down so that it fits in with everything. Let's say you see a rhinestone that you really don't want. We're going to come back to this one. I mean, why is it just sitting in the middle of nowhere? Click on it, right click and delete it. It can go away. Same with this one. Click on it, right click and delete it. It can go away. That way you're seeing more of what is going to be on your shirt and not what the silhouette program thinks should be on your shirt. So now it's cleaned up just a little bit more. Highlight the whole thing, not half. Right click, and you're going to group it. And it's got to group every single itty bitty dot, but when it's done, this is what's going to cut out of your vinyl. Go down a little bit more, and we're going to go up. Mr. Rhinestone, you can go over there. I'm going to make this bigger so that you can see there are areas in here that I just don't like. I don't like the fact that all of this, in fact, I think I'm going to highlight it and make it the 10SS again, because those are really big dots for that font. Yeah, just a second. There we go. All right, again, I don't like any of this right here, so while it's highlighted, I'm going to release all the stones or the dots, and we're going to fix a little bit of this. Not necessarily all of it, because that would take forever, but I do want to show you how to do this so that later on you'd be able to do it yourself. It's still releasing all those little dots. Give it a second. There we go. I think I'm going to get rid of this real fast. We can bring it back in. Now, all these little areas right here, I don't like. I want those full. I want them to be straighter and a little neater, so you'll move things around. But what I wanted to show you is that even though we really worked hard to make sure that they weren't touching and overlapping, it can still happen. We have some touching over here that I don't want touching. We have some overlapping in other areas, like right here. We don't want that. We can remove some of these, move it out of the way so it doesn't cut into each other, makes its own individual dot. We can remove some of these so this looks like an E and less like a blob. There's your E. Move this up so it looks a little neater. There's your E. You can take these and use them to fill in other areas. Make sure they're not touching. But what I'm pointing out is that you're not stuck with what the Silhouette program thinks that you should have. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to show you is that there are fonts that you can use as well. I found these two fonts, the Cody font and the National Primary font, and the 1001 fonts. It's under dotted fonts. These two are free. You can also find fonts on Creative Fabrica, and you can also purchase other dotted fonts. But these two right here are free. So we're going to highlight this, and I'm going to show you what the National Primary looks like. The National Primary is one of my favorite free dotted fonts because it's curly and it's very girly, but you don't have to use this one, and you can't change this one. That's the only thing about this. If you like any of the areas in here, you can't change any of it because it's just part of the font. You can go in and make your own dots. You can go in and you can release the letters, but you can't change any of the dots. Like right here, I wouldn't like that. But I just wanted to show you that you can find fonts online that are already dots. This is really great for teachers who want to put together words for their children to trace over. So if you like the Danillion and you want the kids to trace their names or whatever, this National Primary is great for that. Finally, I want to show you that you can download already ready to go PNGs. I've got this one on creativefabrica.com. If you don't have a membership to them, I highly recommend them. They have anything and everything for the full amount. I think I pay $20 a month, but the amount of SVGs, the PNGs, the fonts, any font that you ever really wanted but didn't want to pay for is probably over at creativefabrica.com. But it also has these files that have already been created that are already dots so that you don't have to go in and make yours.